Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today with me I have my colleague Giuseppe from Agile 42 Sweden, and my name is Sofia, and I also work alongside with Giuseppe for Agile 42 Sweden. We are today going to touch the topic from organic agility, and it's principle number 2's time, and we are going to talk about a decision-making approach to resilience today. As some of you probably know, this is a series of webinars that's been ongoing already for quite some time. Today, touching principle 2, and in January next time, it's going to be time for principle number 3. Before we start, as I already mentioned, you can set the chat to panelists and attendees so that we are all aware of all your good comments and statements that you want to make in the chat with us. All questions you will have for Giuseppe during the webinar, you can put in the Q&A, and we're going to have a look at them in the end of the session. The webinar is going to be recorded, and we are publishing then the recording on social media, on our websites, on our blog, and so on. So stay tuned also for that. You can share the blog around then with people in your network if they missed out on the live session. You're also going to get an email from us today or tomorrow by the latest with all the slides that Giuseppe is sharing today, and the recording and other good information that you might find helpful. So just feel free to be active during the webinar together with us today. I'm going to hand it over to Giuseppe, and I'm going to be back then in the end of the presentation for the questions. So see you later.
Hello, good evening and welcome. I'm Giuseppe De Simone. I'm an Italian living in Sweden. I'm a certified Scrum trainer and coach, and I'm also an organic agility professional. And I'm very happy to continue this interesting series of webinar with all of you who are passionate about culture and organizational change. And yeah, as you know, some of you who have been with us all these webinars, we are introducing our novel approach to organizational resilience, and we started by introducing the leadership framework. We talked about leadership behavior, and we talked about organizational archetypes, and then now we are starting to, cover all the 5 principles of organic agility, as well as all the tools and models that together represent our scaffolding to organization to create their own practices to achieve resilience and agility. And today is about principle number 2, is about like situational decision making. And yeah, I think I'm going to switch off my camera so you also in the recording you can also concentrate on the slides. So yeah, we will explore this principle number 2 and how we can create and use a common and transparent framework for decision making that adapts to a specific context. And why is decision important? I mean, of course, decision making is an essential process in any organization. There is like even a study from Standard Group that shows that if there is a bad decision latency in a company, so a long decision latency, being decision latency, the average time to take a decision, only 23% of the projects succeed, while if there is a very good decision latency, a fast decision latency, then over 50% of the projects succeed, which means that decision making and how we are good at making decisions is not the only things that creates a successful project, but it's a very important factor. And there is another reason why decisions are so important. As some of you might remember, when we talk about why agility and why resilience is important, we introduced this graph, which is called results pyramid. And we described how the results that we achieve in a company are actually driven by the actions and the behaviors of everyone in a company, which of course take grounds in our beliefs. And since our brain is a connecting machine, our beliefs are wide and created by the experience we live in our life. And we say that there is an interface between what we believe and the actions that we make, which is like a decision making action, right? So we transform what we believe in what we do by means of a decision. So if we are in a stable environment, a stable market, of course, it's pretty easy to, or it works pretty well to take like centralized decisions and through managing actions of each and every individual. But when the market condition become very volatile and change become like very fast, then like centralized decision making doesn't work very well. So we need to distribute decision making in the company. But then the problem is that if we distribute decision making, there is the risk that everyone is taking different decisions and different actions, and we are actually not going towards the company vision. So we need, in that case, to create a coherent culture and a coherent approach, so that whatever decision people take, we are sure that these are coherent with each other, and these are coherent with the vision and the goal we want to achieve. And that's what we're going to talk about today, like how we can create like a decision-making frameworks that is coherent and allows then, when it's necessary, to distribute decision-making. This approach that we describe is actually based in two steps. There's a step one that's about situational analysis, and then a step two that is about decision-making framework. Let's talk about situation analysis first. And I want to start this by asking you to make some short reflection. So I would like to ask you, each of you, to individually reflect on the past few weeks, and then note down, maybe on a piece of paper you have in front of you, maybe some decisions which have been affecting your work. And it doesn't matter if you were the one taking the decision or someone else did the decision and the decision just affected you. Okay, so think about this, a couple of minutes, write down as many as you can within this 2 minutes time box. And then I will explain, what are the next steps. Okay, I hope you're writing down some of these decisions from the last weeks. So it should be decisions that are related to your work environment, but it doesn't matter if you were the one actually taking the decision or someone else did. Yeah. So the reason why I ask you to make this individual reflection is because this is like the first step in how we actually, how we actually make a situation analysis in a specific cohort or in a specific company. So there is a first phase which is called individual sense making. So imagine that you have this diagram in front of you, where you have 4 different corners. So in the bottom right corner, you realize that in that context where that decision was related to, a single right answer was clear. So it was self-evident, right? While in the top right corner, actually, you realize that in order for you to take the decision, or in order for the person to take those decisions, you had to rely on expertise or analysis. If you look on the other side, we have on the top left corner, a situation where there was no way to predict the outcome, but actually this required multiple bets, while on the bottom left corner, it was critical to act immediately. Things were volatile. So you might think, as you like, you might want to draw this diagram on your, on a piece of paper on your desk, or just like in your imagination. Think about to which of these like corner decisions that you noted down could belong to, and then like place this decision in a certain area in this diagram, depending on which of this corner your context, the context of that decision is closer to. So imagine that you do this with a certain number of people. So this will actually, you go in round robin style, and each participant takes one of the decision and place it in the boards, like, using the distance from the four corners to determine which of the statements is better representing the way that decision might have been made. And of course, since you are in a group, a short explanation to the group might be helpful, but this is not a time to debate whether the item is positioned in the right place or in the wrong place. And then you go around in the group until, everyone runs out of decision. So we imagine that we might have this situation, which complete the phase of individual sense making. Then there is a second phase that is called group sense making. So what happens is that the group try to identify some visible cluster on this canvas, and then try to ask the people who own a specific decision to share how the decision was made, and together decide whether that decision is actually similar or related to others nearby in that place, or maybe needs to be moved in the other place. And then you go through as many clusters as you can, right? And try to, maybe adjust the placement. And while before you only rely on your ability to make sense of your decision, now you can rely on a group wisdom to maybe adjust the position a little bit. And then after that, ask the group to create some, within your group, you create some shapes about the post-it that identify in a way 5 different regions inside this canvas, inside this diagram. And then you end up with something, in the end, you end up in something like this, right? So this might be, something that reminds you something. And that's what I want to ask you before we go into the decision-making framework. I would like to launch a poll and ask you about Cynefin, right? So how many of you actually have heard about Cynefin? How many of you know it? How many of you know just the name, but not much more? And how many of you have never heard about this word before? So I will launch a poll now. So if you can just like maybe in 45 seconds, quickly answer any of these questions, so we understand, who is in this group, in this webinar today. Okay, it seems that, yeah, half of the people in the room at the moment, know Cynefin, but there are also, kind of half that, yeah, we'll leave a few seconds more. Okay, it doesn't matter if not everybody has voted, but I will share the results. Now you can see like there are at least 40% of the people in the webinar that never even heard about Cynefin, and some know the name but know much more, so the majority. And then there are a few of you that actually know it, so you will bear with me if I spend a few words on Cynefin to take everyone at least on the same page. So if I stop sharing the poll, so this is a diagram about Cynefin. Cynefin is a Welsh word that means domain or habitat. And this is a sense-making framework that was created by Dave Snowden. And actually now it celebrates 21 years of life. And it has evolved a lot during this 21 years. And now it's been applied to a lot of different domains. I'm not gonna explain everything. I'm just gonna give you some kind of guidelines so that we can understand the rest of the webinar. So basically, as I said, it's a sense making framework that helps us making sense of the reality, right? And we have like the two domains that are on the right side are kind of ordered domains, while the two domains out on the left side are kind of unordered domains. So in the bottom right corner, you see one domain which is called clear. This is a domain where the relationship between cause and effect is obvious and self-evident to everybody. So in this kind of domain, basically, the nature of a problem is self-evident to everyone, but also the solution to that problem is self-evident to everyone. So that's why this is the domain of the so-called best practices, right? If we go like counterclockwise, we go to the complicated domains. And this is the domain where the relationship between cause and effect exists, but it's not self-evident to everyone. And in order for a person to understand this relationship, you need expertise in that specific domain. And that's why, if you want to solve a problem in this domain, you require some kind of analysis. And of course, there's not only one way to solve a problem in this domain. That's why this is the domain of the good practice. If we move now on the left side, you will see go into the complex domain. And this is a domain where the relationship between cause and effect can only be understood in retrospective. So basically, this is a domain of the unknown unknowns. So it's a domain where the expertise and the knowledge doesn't help so much, while cognitive diversity is what we need to solve the problem in this domain. And since no one knows what to do and how to solve the problem, this is a domain that must be addressed with a probe sense response. So we have to probe the system, see how it responds, see how it reacts, and then find the proper action that work in that specific domain. And that's why this is the domain of the so-called like emergent practice or acceptive practices, as Dave Snowden called them now. And then on the bottom left corner, we have the chaotic domain. This is the domain where there is no relationship between cause and effect. It's a domain where there is an emergency, there's a high volatility, there's a burning platform, and we need to act immediately, and then take the system under control, so to speak, and then see what happens and then respond properly. And this is the domain of the novel practices. And then we have this domain in the middle that is so-called the confused domain, which means that you're not really able to make sense of the reality, and that's why you need to do something different. You need to try to bring this problem or in one of the other four domains. So the reason why we are I'm not going to say more about this, but all of you might have recognized this shape in the shape that we were showing before. So in that sense, the Cynefin framework is actually at the foundation, both on the sense-making analysis we described before, but is also like at the foundation of this second step about, okay, how once we have made sense of the reality, once we have made the analysis of the situation, how can we decide what's the best decision-making approach that fits in that specific domain? Because the key is that no one decision-making approach fits all possible situation. And if we want really to achieve resilience and agility, meaning that we are able to apply what is necessary when it's necessary, we need to be able to make sense of the situation and counteract appropriately. So from what we learned about Cynefin, basically, we can probably understand that if we are in the clear domain, when a single right answer is clear, basically, probably first of all, we don't even need to do any situation analysis because probably the situation and the things are self-evident anyway. And since there are best practices, probably we should follow simple rules to solve this problem. This should be a problem that is known to everyone. So we should probably have a checklist and best practices in place to solve the problem. This should be visible and known to everyone. So if we have a problem in the clear domain and we don't have checklists, we should simply have checklists and rules, right? But if we are in the complicated domain, we said we need to rely on expertise and we need to rely on analysis of expert to make a decision in this context. So what actually happens is that, first of all, is the situation analysis is done by expert and is validated through pre-review. And probably the decisions also is given to a panel of experts that might provide several options with pros and cons. And then, the decision makers can make a decision based on this analysis. While if you are in the complex domain, first of all, since multiple bets are required and experimentation is required, we need, first of all, to distribute situation analysis to a group of people with cognitive diversity, right? And cognitive diversity is necessary in this domain since, each of us is biased. Like we always talk about, we want to try to avoid cognitive bias, but actually this is impossible. This is an evolutionary mechanism that nature has created in us. So actually, even though we can mitigate the effect of cognitive bias, no one can remove that. So if we have a group of people who are cognitive diverse, they can, probably look at the problem from a more holistic perspective. And then once we make sense of the reality, we know that we are in this domain, then the way to address these domains through multiple safe to fail experiment that can allow us to probe the system and sense what's the right way to approach and then find a proper solution. So in this case, analysis is actually useless, while we should basically just design multiple safe to fail experiment. But while we have in the chaotic domain, the situation is very volatile. We don't have time for analysis. We don't have time for probing the system. So decisive action must be taken, and then there's no time for consensus or distributed decision making. So probably here, like a draconian decision making is necessary, and a very direct leadership is necessary to act immediately. Think about like 9/11, where the firefighters faced the situation in the Twin Towers. They didn't analyze the situation. They didn't like try to experiment. They just like followed the orders of some kind of lead firefighters, and then try to put up the fire until the situation could be brought to a minimal level of coherence. And in this case, fast decision is crucial, and a bad decision which leaves options open is better than no decision at all. Like in this context, we cannot afford to take no decision at all, right? So this is kind of describing, the process that organic agility provides, like situation analysis, and then depending on the situation analysis, we are about to create a decision-making approach that fits that specific domain. And here I made just some example of what might be different decision-making process, but actually this is just a scaffolding, and every company, every organization can, create their own situation analysis approach and their own decision-making processes depending on the situation analysis that take inspiration by this scaffolding. But this is not all, because when it's not only the situation analysis that matters, but also the culture matters. And if you remember, in I think it was 2 webinars ago, we talked about organization archetypes as a way to visualize and connect organization design, organization culture, and leadership attitude, and show how these things could be strongly connected, and give sort of a map to interpret how a certain cohort or certain team or certain group of people actually behaves. And this has an effect on how we actually put this in practice, right? Because there might be different ways how we can set up a panel of experts or take distributed decision making. So let me try to connect these two pieces together. So if we think about the clear domain, actually there is no influence from archetypes there. So regardless which kind of culture you have in a group or which kind of culture you have in a company, it doesn't matter. You need rules and checklists, and that's it. It's not about discussing how to do things. We just do it, right? It's self-evident, it's clear, and there's no matter of discussion. And the same applies to the chaotic domain. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's critical to act immediately. We should follow the orders of someone. We're supposed to take a decision in this context. It doesn't matter, how we feel about a very direct leadership, and it doesn't matter if this way of doing creates any motivational depth. It doesn't matter, because we need to act fast. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very critical. So the first thing is that there is no influence from archetypes and culture on how we take decision on the lower part of this diagram, but there is an effect on the upper part of the diagram. So let's make some example. For instance, let's assume that we made a situation analysis that this problem or this decision we need to make need to rely on expertise or analysis. And imagine that we are in an expert archetype, which means that the leader is the senior technical expert, and the team is about a set of specialists that just work in their specific context. So the way we set up the decision-making process here is that the leader, who is the main expert and is the only one who has the whole view, he will probably divide the problem in subparts and assign that specific sub-portion to a specific specialist in that specific area. And then we'll ask them to do an analysis and get back, let's say, in 1 week. And then when we have the result from all the different pieces, he will probably put everything together and make an analysis on the overall picture, and will take a decision on his own. While if we are in a peer archetype, well, the leader is actually a peer member of the team, that will probably make a collective situation analysis first, maybe validated by peer review, and then we probably analyze the problem together, come up with pros and cons, and maybe they will validate the analysis of the different option again with peer review, and then we'll take a decision collectively. So it's the same approach, but done in a different way depending on the culture of the specific group. If we go similarly, if we go on the other side, when we are in a complex domain, so imagine again that we are in expert archetype. So what would probably happen is that the leader, who is the maximum technical expert, he will define the experiment and will assign specific experiment to specific person, and we'll say, okay, do that, try that, and get back to me in 1 week with the result of what worked and what didn't work. So he will get directly the result from the different people, and then we'll put everything together and we'll take a decision based on the result of the experiment. While if we are, for instance, in a coach archetype, where actually the leader is outside the team and is actually coaching the team, and the team is self-managed, what will happen is probably that, you know, the team will design together some experiment, and then maybe one or more team members will volunteer to take part of certain experiment. They will decide what the experiment is, how long should we take, and then together we'll analyze the result and take the decision together about, okay, what works and what doesn't work in that specific context. So with this, I wanted to just, you know, in a way connect the two things together and explain how, you know, also leadership and situation analysis and decision-making culture, how they are all connected together and why there is no right or wrong answer, but everything depends on the context and on the cultural background of the group of people that are involved in this. So I would like to finish with a short self-reflection before we open to Q&A. And the final reflection is about, given what you heard, how are you going to be aware of the context when you make a decision in your company? And maybe you want to reflect about how would you see this organic agility principle working in your organization, or more generically, what are the key takeaways for you today? I would like to ask you to use the chat to share your answer with everybody, so we can use this collective wisdom with everybody. Yeah, so everybody can benefit with this. So 2 minutes time box. Please share your reflection in the chat with all participants and panelists. Okay, maybe we can, you know, you're welcome to continue to, you know, share your reflection. Then maybe I know that Sophia wants to talk about something, and then we will open to Q&A.
Yes. Thank you, Giuseppe, for the presentation so far. I just want to let everyone know that's now maybe having questions or wondering how you can learn more about the organic agility and the principles and the approaches. Say, we have a training coming up still in December where we have actually 3 spots left. So this is a perfect place where you can learn more still this year. And of course, next year there's going to be more trainings. So if this is something you would like to do, that's a good option. And we will send everyone here now today in the live session an email with the discount code for the training. So stay tuned for that. But there's also other things you can do if you are interested to take the next steps. So the foundations is always good to have, and it's also required for some of the additional next steps. But you can have your own decision-making framework, for example, created together with our coaches, or you can have an archetype assessment where you can start mapping your organization as well. So there's a few steps you can do also to understand the process better. And all of these things can be done both virtually and in person. So even in these Corona times, we are here to support you. There's a lot more to learn also about organic agility through reading. So we have a book that you can order online. We will send you also these details in the same email, and the slides are also available later with all the links and so on. There's case studies where we've used already also organic agility as an approach with some clients. So these are also available online. And also I already put in the chat, but there's also the previous webinar recordings out that you can check from our webinar listing. So also stay tuned for that. And that's where you're going to find the upcoming principle number 3 webinar as well in January, as soon as we have it online. Did I miss out something, Giuseppe, or was that kind of what we wanted to do? Cool.
No, we can go on with the question, right? Yeah, I will stop sharing so you can just move on with the questions. I will.
Super. There's been a lot of questions first just around the recording, so it's going to be shared with you guys later, so stay tuned for that. Can you maybe start, Giuseppe, by letting us know how we can motivate people to take decisions in an organization if this is somehow difficult?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is that, every time people are smart and people know that decision-making is crucial and important. I think that people normally get frustrated either where decision takes so long or important decisions need a lot of bureaucratic approval before being made. So I never actually experienced the need to motivate people to take decisions. It's actually the opposite. And every time I talk about this kind of things or in organic agility foundation training in companies or public classes or coaching leadership teams, this is like just resonate with people so much that there's no need to motivate people. And this is so crucial for companies that I never experienced the need to motivate people so much. So yeah, I hope this answers this question.
Thank you. Then here's another question that how would you approach the situation where different management levels disagree about the quadrant where a situation belongs? For example, the founders see it as chaotic when the product management sees it as complex.
Yeah. I mean, what I described in the webinar is just an example, right? So actually you need to, first of all, create your own like sense-making framework, your own situation analysis framework. So you need to understand for you, in your context, and for the people that work in that specific company, what does it mean something to be complex, or what does it mean something, and you can even, skip Cynefin. I mean, since it's a webinar, I want to connect it to Cynefin, but people don't even need to know the theory behind. You just need to understand, okay, what qualifies something to be in the top right corner to say that you need multiple bets in order to take a decision. What qualifies something that in order to be chaotic, but this is usually every group I've been coaching has, without so many trouble, come up with some kind of agreement on what, how can we make sense of something depending on a certain characteristic. And I would say complex and chaotic are also very clear to put aside, because in the chaotic domain, things are, really volatile. It's an emergency, right? I was making an example of 9/11, where you need to act fast and immediately, otherwise, something really bad will happen, or the whole system will collapse, or the company will close, or you will lose a big market share. While the complex domain, you don't have this urgency, and there is so actually, there are like higher level of entropy moving, clockwise from clear to domain, and actually requires more energy to stabilize a system and move it from chaotic to complex. But besides these theoretical things, I think the key answer is that you need to find your way. You need to find a way that makes sense for that people in that specific context by following the guideline that I explained to you. That's why organic agility is not supposed to be silver bullet, but it gives you a scaffolding by using these principal tools, and you can build your own house inside and your own practices inside.
Thank you. Then here's one attendee who would like to have some real work-life examples and experiences of complicated vs complex situation to just make it clear a little bit more. Can you share something?
Yeah, I think like if we think about something that everybody knows now, like this Corona situation, right? So you can say, for instance, that when there was the virus breakout and situation need to be stabilized soon, then there was a decision from many government to have a lockdown. So this was like a draconian decision, even like removing some personal rights of people to move around, but needs to be taken to stop the situation and create some kind of stability before every hospital get like completely like stuck. So this can be an example of a chaotic domain. While if you think about the process to finding a vaccine for COVID, this might be a complex situation, right? So here, no one really knows, or at least, still no one really knows now. But if you imagine about like a few months ago, nobody really knew about how to create a vaccine for COVID-19, and then a lot of experiments need to be tried in parallel. And there was probably at the beginning dozens of trials done, and now it's and then moving forward, some experiments failed, and then some are still alive. And now I think there are probably like some 7, 8, 10 vaccine that are still under research. I don't know the exact number, and then probably in the end only a handful would be like fixed, right? And then if we think about now, then the process to when the vaccine is found, the process of producing mass production of doses for everyone to be vaccinated, this is a complicated domain. This is a production environment, so probably an analysis needs to be done about how many vaccines are needed around the world. What's the most efficient way to produce them, how we can distribute, who should have them first, should we go first to certain countries or other countries or to all countries, and maybe first to some kind of portion of population more at risk. So these are all things that just need some expert analysis and then planning and execution. This can be a complicated situation. So I hope this was like giving some clarification about these two cases.
Thanks.
And maybe a clear domain could be like, what is the procedure everyone needs to follow now to stay safe from Corona, like wash your hands, put on a mask, and keep a distance. These are simple rules that everyone can follow, and you don't need to discuss, just do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Then here is one question. How do you involve everyone in developing this decision-making framework from intern to CEO, just to get the good decision-making at all levels?
Yeah, this is an iterative incremental approach, so to speak, but also, you know, you don't even need to have just one decision-making framework for the whole company, because different like cohort or sub or department might have their own way to make a situation analysis, and even their own specific way of taking decision. If you consider also that maybe different teams or different departments in company might have completely different culture, so you might need like slightly different approaches, but this is also an iterative incremental approach, and we observed that while, you know, as we saw in principle number 1, while you create a more coherent culture throughout the company, you can also try to create iterative incrementally some kind of more coherent decision-making framework that works well for most of all the companies. So the two things go together. So creating a more coherent culture also allows to have a more coherent decision-making framework.
Thank you. At the moment, we don't have very many other questions. It's more about the slides, which also will be shared with you guys afterwards, and so on. So maybe we give you still a few minutes if you come up with some questions you would like to ask from Giuseppe. He's available to answer anything you want to ask.
Yeah, I mean, there was I just saw a reflection from Pontus about like the domain is dependent on the context and the people's experience. That's actually true, even though it's not the same for probably like the weight of context and people experience is not the same in all context. For instance, this is very, very true on the order domain, where, you know, basically we can also even say that clear and complicated domain are actually the same domain, right? Because and depending on the people experience, something might be, you know, like very clear for Sophia, or maybe might be very, very complicated for me because I don't have experience in that specific things. And maybe it can become even complex if you think about maybe, you know, an established company and think about the travel expenses reporting system. This might be like a very clear you know, process with a clear process and checklist in a company. But if you think about a new startup, maybe they don't even have a process, and they even need to discover what is the process that works best for them. So this might be even like a little bit liminal, complex, complicated for them. I'm making a little bit exaggerated example, but just to acknowledge that Pontus said actually a very good point that, you know, I didn't mention, not to make things too complicated. And that's why probably different people, different, you know, cohort or department in the company might also have different, slightly different decision situation analysis framework, because it's also different people.
Yeah, thanks. There's been a lot of positive feedback around the COVID and Cynefin combination here. I think it's a good example to show and clear it out. Yeah. Also, a few people have already started to drop out, so maybe if there's no more questions, we can also close maybe a little bit earlier today the webinar. But just to wrap up everything, there's a training if you want to learn more. There's books if you want to read into the organic agility approach. We have our websites, we have the webinars, and we are also here to answer any questions afterwards. So just get in touch in that sense. Thanks, Giuseppe, today for the presentation that you gave, and thank you everyone for asking questions and giving also good comments and thoughts in the chat. The email will be coming soon to you with the recording and the slides and all other information. Is there still something, Giuseppe, you would like to add for today?
I'd just like, feel free to get back to us for anything. I mean, through, the email Fia is sending to you, or getting in touch or connected on LinkedIn. I mean, if you have a question or anything, I would be happy to get in touch. I mean, this is to, give something also to the community, and maybe, bring together people who are passionate about these subjects. And yeah, so let's stay in touch. And thanks all of you for your engagement and interesting question.
Thank you, and hopefully see you in January for the principle number 3. Have a good and lovely week. It's Monday now, so we need to focus still a few days. See you next time, guys.
See you, bye.